call the meeting to order. We will stand for a voluntary recital of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Are there any members of the public here who'd like to speak tonight? Seeing none, let's go to approval of the minutes from our January 14th regular meeting. Minutes were taken very capably by Kevin and Brooke and distributed. So any comments on the minutes? Is there I guess we should have a motion to approve the minutes before we have comments on the minutes. Forgive me. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now we can have discussion about the minutes if anybody wishes to. All right, great. Hearing no discussion. All in favor of approving the minutes from the January 14th regular meeting of the Board of Finance, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries 4-0. Next up, we're flying through the agenda. First Selectman report, please.
Thank you. There we go. We on? So, yep. Before we go through the presentation, I'd just like to mention a couple of other things before we start, so that everyone knows. We did have an event last night at our public safety building, and it involved a small fire situation in the server room, and temporarily we had lost communications, and could have been a far more serious event. Our IT staff responded really heroically, really. I think they were in harm's way, and reestablished communications, and we're still not there yet. That it'll be involved before we're fully back to where we need to be. But I want to thank Dan Cleary and Jason Finnegan that works with him for what they did to try to get us back online, and for the quick response from the fire department to really reduce what could have been a real disaster. So thank you to them.
Dan, are you able to comment on any injuries or equipment problems?
There's question on the root cause of what caused the situation to begin with, and that's something that has to be looked into, from an engineering perspective, I think.
But no injuries to people?
No injuries, thank goodness.
Great
yes,
news.
Yep, very thankful for that. And a quick update on, we've talked before about our radio system, communications between the fire service and the police service. I did attend the radio committee meeting a couple of days ago, and today was supposed to be a milestone event where they were supposed to turn on some equipment at the other, the old building, EMD building down near the high school where the tower is. But I'm not sure if they were able to do that given the events that happened at the police station. So, but the better news is that we are making good progress with getting our communications back where they should be, up to where they should be. And there's a glimmer of hope, light at the end of the tunnel, not here yet, but they are really making strides and really have a plan for getting us connected to the state of Connecticut system and being able to switch between, without getting too technical, they call the VHF band and then the state band, which will allow us to communicate with other towns, other municipalities, and with each other. So I'm very happy to see that we're making progress in that area, and it's very important for public safety and for the town as a whole. So with that, I think we can turn to the presentation for this evening.
Great, thank you.
Yep, and you have the hard copy, and it's up on the screen. So this is the fiscal year 26-2027 budget presentation that I prepared and delivered to the Board of Selectmen last evening. First, we'll just look at the past for a moment. Let's look at the 2025, 2026 budget initiatives. A year ago, we planned to hire a 12th firefighter on July 1st, 2025, and then a 13th firefighter on January 1st, 2026. The department plan was for 18 firefighters. That's 6 firefighters per shift and 2 per station. So we have 3 fire stations, and we have 3 shifts, so that's why the number is 18. And I believe that is an optimal number. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. But the other concern and initiative was increasing the use of cash capital. We want to balance debt service versus cash capital. Last year we proposed $1.35 million in cash capital to be used rather than borrowing. We ended up having it, let's see, I think the final number was $998,000. And we were working towards a goal of $2 million for cash capital for in the future. So instead of borrowing as much as we have to, try to use $2 million in cash. That was our goal last year. And as always, emphasis on maintaining our buildings, vehicles, and other assets. And we want to prioritize our needs and not our wants. We recognized last year, and I think we knew it all along, that we can't keep expanding the base of amenities in town. We have to limit that, and we have to focus on what we already have and concern ourselves with maintaining it so it lasts a long time and making what we have as useful as it can be. So now, if we want to go to the next slide.
Dan, could I just ask?
Yes, sure.
So when you talk about the cash capital,
Yes.
is the intent of the cash capital to use it for, I think, what is commonly known as contingency capital, meaning break, fix, things that were unexpected, or you're literally anticipating $2 million in cash for planned capital spend?
The latter. So we have a certain amount, and we had the capital improvement committee plan meetings, and we started off with a number north of 11 million, got down to under 7 million, just under 7 million. So those are capital improvements in the next fiscal year. So there's 2 ways you can pay. You can borrow money, you can use a credit card and borrow all of it, or you can try to discipline yourself and reduce expenses in other areas and use cash in the current year to pay for those expenses and those capital improvements and borrow less. So the idea is to reduce bonding, use more current cash. Does that answer the question?
Yes, and I understood that. I guess my concern is, so let's assume we approve the capital committee's recommendations for what they want to spend.
Yes.
But a month into the year, we have a transformer that blows, or we have some major facility issue that comes up, and it's $150,000 that was not part of anyone's capital submission, and it is something that like just happened, like the fire in the data center.
Right.
So fire in the data center, let's assume we have $30,000 worth of servers that need to be replaced. If you're not setting aside, let's say, $2 million cash capital for contingency items, or even $1 million for contingency items, for break fix that's unplanned, unexpected, what do you do when you suddenly need $30,000 and you've already got your capital set aside?
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, because I know you understand this far better than I do. But my understanding is we do have a contingency line in our operating budget.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to say anything more.
And, yeah, and
Quick little 30 seconds. So if everyone could look at the screen here, it's hard to zoom in. Let me just see so everyone can see here. So the first line, when we look at contingency, we have a few different items that we lump into contingency. There's a townwide contingency that I wanted $375,000 in personnel contingency for 344, which is because we have 3 union contracts we're in negotiations with right now. So we don't want to put the money into the budget and then lock us in. So we put it into a contingency and then allocate into the budget through a budget transfer later in the year. So, to Kim, to your point, if something like the transformer were to blow, we would take it out of this townwide contingency fund. This line right here that we're budgeting after the first selectman's cuts is $275 for the entire town. So when you look at a $105 million budget, we have about $250,000 we set aside for contingencies like this.
Okay.
Yep.
And I guess my only comment would be that contingency is cash, right?
Mhm.
But when you have a transformer blower, you have $30,000 worth of servers, that hits your capital, right? That hits your depreciation schedule. So it's cash there, but when it gets flipped to an asset, then it has depreciation and other implications to the balance sheet.
Correct.
So I'm just thinking how we might want to think about those line items versus earmarking a certain amount of capital that's already maybe factored in to our borrowing plans or factored into our amortization schedule, something along those lines. I mean, typically in my experience, organizations do have like contingency capital versus just having it sit as cash in a budget, so to speak.
So
If I'm understanding that particular schedule.
I think we're on different wavelengths. So when Dan
Okay.
talks about cash capital, this line right above here that says cash capital for the $1,055,000 right here, all the way to the right, that line, if we pull up this giant spreadsheet that I passed out, the cash capital isn't a contingency. That's earmarked for specific projects already. So every dollar of bonded money and cash capital money is earmarked to a specific project. There's not a single dollar in a contingency line in capital projects, right? So
Okay.
it's razor thin. Like there's
Okay.
about 5,000 for roofs if something were to happen. Like reserve funds, everything's razor thin margins for the most part. Is that kind of what you were? Are we on?
Yes, I would think that we would want to have some type of capital contingency fund.
Just give us 2 more slides, and you'll see what
Okay. Okay.
my proposal would be, but we just can't afford it at the moment. So that's our big.
Okay.
Just a housekeeping issue. First of all, let's make sure we're close to the mics so that people watching online can hear, please. And I'll try to remember to stop at appropriate points in Dan's presentation to ask see if any board members have questions. Just raise your hand if you do. Go ahead, Rich. Good. I thought you raised your hand.
No, I didn't.
Okay,
Thank
Yep.
you, though.
just give me a moment, and then, yep. All right, so I'll proceed. So 2026, 27 budget initiatives. Again, looking at the fire service, there's an overarching theme, and in this budget has to do with public safety, protecting the people that live here, protecting our infrastructure, and you'll see that in these initiatives. The fire service, we want to expand the service to all 3 fire stations. Right now we have the Niantic Fire Station and we have Flanders. We also have a fire station near Peretz Park, near the Lyme Tavern. We refer to that often as Station 2. Occasionally we have a firefighter there, but there isn't a plan to fully staff it 24 hours a day or 365. The idea is to hire 3 firefighters on July 1st, 2026, and stagger it, and hire 3 more January 1st of 2027. So that staggers the hiring to get us up to 18 firefighters. That completes the original department plan of 18 firefighters with 6 firefighters per shift and 2 per station. Now, it's expensive to do that. But it's also expensive if we remained at 12 firefighters with 4 on each shift. When one calls out, you then have an overtime situation to fill that shift. And we always want to be sure to have at least 4 firefighters on shift. There are is it NAF, what is the acronym? NEPA, well, the NFPA? Yeah, so there are NFPA standards that we are in line with having 4 on per shift. So that's 12 firefighters, 3 shifts, so that's 12. If we were to have 6, and one calls out sick, or isn't there for some other reason, we now have 5 firefighters, and we don't have to bring somebody in on overtime. And if we were to lose 2 firefighters on a particular day, we still don't have to increase our overtime expense for that day. So by having 6 firefighters, we have some marginal savings in overtime expense. We will still have overtime expense. That won't go away. And there's other intricate reasons having to do with how the union contract works. But I'm trying to balance value to what looks like savings that is false economy. And if we have to spend money on overtime, I think it's better to have more bodies, more staff, more fully staffed fire service, and have people there rather than other people getting time and a half. So it will cost more money to have 6 firefighters per shift, but we do realize some savings in our overtime line. And I think, at the end of the day, provides much greater service to the town and at an economical way to do it, a more economical way. It's not going to be cheap, but it's the greatest value, the way I see it. And so as we get into more of the intricacies of how that works, hopefully you'll share that vision. With the police, we foresee adding another police officer in July and then 1 in January, so it's 1.5 officers throughout that budget cycle. And again, we'll return to the concept of cash capital and reducing our reliance on debt. We've already explored that topic. Again, we would love to see $2 to $4 million in cash capital annually as a goal for the future. We're not going to get there all at once, but we have to make baby steps in that direction. And it has long-term implications for the town. We didn't get to where we are right now when we look at debt service overnight. Some of the years where we had lower increases in the budget, well, that came at a cost. And the cost was putting things out into the future, putting debt out into the future, using the credit card. And my hope and my philosophy is let's stop using the credit card. Let's try to suffer some of the pain right now so that in the future, 10, 12 years from now, we'll be in better fiscal shape with less reliance on debt and debt service as such a major part of our budget. IT infrastructure and investments. We talked a little bit about the radio system. You've probably read in the news, different municipalities being, their IT systems being captured by some scoundrel out on the internet and having to pay ransom to get their files back and to get their data back. The more we can harden our IT system, the less probability that they'll come to East Lyme. They'll look for someone that's more vulnerable. So it doesn't mean that taking the steps by better software, better servers will prevent it, but it'll, to the extent that we can make ourselves a less attractive target, that's the goal. And again, that's consistent with better fire service, better police service, and protecting the town from having to pay a ransom to an internet thief. At this time, I'm going to turn, unless there's questions for me, I'm going to turn the presentation
Questions
over
or
to Kevin.
comments from board members on the budget initiatives page?
Yes.
Yes, under the police line, the increased staffing of 1.5
Yes.
full-time officers, have the 3 officers shortage that we've had this last year, has that been rectified and that they're at full force now? And that these are an additional 1.5 officers on top of what a full complement would have been this
So-
last year?
My understanding is that they're still down, right, with respect to the three?
I think there's one out on like
Yeah.
medical issue that they're working through, but besides that, they're full staff now.
So just
Okay.
that one.
Just that.
So this would be in addition, assuming we get the other officer back, that's out on a medical leave or whatever the situation is. This would be in addition. So this is an initiative to increase overall the police staffing. And if you look at I've seen graphs of towns our size and the number of police officers they have with respect to the population size, and we're really way behind other municipalities for our size. So it can be a dangerous situation when you have 3 officers on duty, and it's not only the size of the population, but you also have to look at, I think, the configuration of the town itself. And if we have a lot of territory up north of the turnpike, and for 3 officers to cover that much physical geography, it's not just the size of the population, which certainly is a factor when you're doing investigations, and we have more cybercrime that they're dealing with. We have the highway that brings in an element to this town that had a lot of auto thefts, people coming in to steal vehicles. So there's those typical, more traditional types of crime. But so it's not only that, but it's the amount of territory that the police have to cover. So I really think it's important to start to bring the staffing up to a more acceptable standard.
Thank you.
2 questions.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So January 1st, 2026, 13th firefighter is hired, and then,
That was last year's budget proposals. The 13th firefighter was eliminated.
Was never hired.
So that's budget and review. That was last year's.
so we
first
only
slide.
have 12.
We
right
have
now.
12.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
That gives you the 3 times 4.
Yeah.
That gets us the 12. But the problem is with that, when someone's out sick, you're in an overtime situation. If even one firefighter calls out, now you've got to bring someone else in.
Tying that back to current budget, the reason why we instituted a spending freeze and hiring freeze. Right now, we have 2 firefighters on military leave, so that means we have 10 firefighters. We had 1 firefighter that was recently out in workers' comp for an extended period of time, which meant we had 9 firefighters to fill the shift of 12 firefighters. So every week, we were filling 6 shifts in overtime. So those 6 shifts, we were paying for 9 firefighters, right, so it's a time and a half. And then on Saturdays, based on the contractual obligations, it's double time. So for those 4 firemen on a Saturday, we're paying essentially 8 firemen. So, and we budgeted for that. We budgeted for the Saturdays. We did not budget for the 2 extended military leaves and that workers' comp piece of it. So that's really what's driving our budget right now. So.
And that's why having additional firefighters would help to alleviate those overtime situations. Wouldn't eliminate it, but it would reduce it somewhat.
So the first 2 shifts of a shift, if 2 people called out, you still have that minimum manning of 4, right? So you're able to absorb 2 individuals either on military leave every shift, accrued vacation time, personal time, sick time. So that gives a little more flexibility with the overtime line. That's why the overtime line is going from about 500,000 to 700,000. That's actually a decrease. This year we budgeted for about 550 overtime. It's going to push $1 million, and we're budgeting for about 700 next year. With the additional staffing, the savings from that overtime.
And again, that was the idea of getting the most value for the money you're spending. Not that it'll be less expensive, but you're going to get greater value by having more bodies in place to go fight a fire in that unfortunate event, but that happens.
Dan, can I just ask, and if this is off topic, let me know. The police who are sitting in police cars supervising the construction project at the exit 74, are they on staff and counted? And are they all East Lyme police officers, or are they privates coming from other sources?
It could be a combination of, so that's private duty, it's extra duty, and that isn't included in our budget for income purposes and for benefits. Now, there is a component that we've tried to correct for pension increases.
Right.
They get credit for that in their pension when they retire, but we've increased the contribution to the pension plan to help offset that. And
Right.
we got state of Connecticut, or Manafort's paying.
But they're not missing required East Lyme shifts in order to go do that
No.
extra work for the
No,
construction?
they are not.
Okay, thank you.
We have a full complement of officers on duty, and their service for the construction project does not take away from that. And also, you might see some Montville police officers there, and I'm not sure what other towns, but it's extra duty.
But they use East Lyme cars most
Yeah,
commonly.
most of them are East Lyme, and
If they're an East Lyme cop, if they're an East Lyme police officer, they're in an East Lyme car.
right.
If it's a Montville police officer, it's a Montville car, and Montville has its own private duty rates. So East Lyme has its own private duty rate, the state police has its own private duty rate. So if we don't have enough police officers for what Manafort demands, say they want 6 officers on shift, they're closing the bridge, they need 6 officers, we only have 4 people willing to work. I believe the practice is to call the towns around us, Montville, Waterford.
I guess what I'm getting at is, if there is an emergency in town, could any of those officers who are currently supervising the construction roads be called to support the emergency?
I mean, without giving, so if there was a major event, they're going to call everybody from everywhere to come in.
Right. Good to know.
Yeah.
My next question has to do with the fire stations. I think you mentioned that the Rocky Neck Fire Station is basically not been operational for some time now. But with the increased staffing that you are proposing, would that become operational as of July 1st-ish?
So, let's see, if we hire 3, it would be January, right?
It would be, so the idea of having,
Yeah.
So with the, can't hear myself. You have to, if you don't hear yourself, you're not really projecting over YouTube, just so everyone knows. In order to expand to the 3 fire stations, you need 2 at each station. That's part of the NFPA standard. You need 2 bodies. The idea behind that was there's been cases where a firefighter's been by himself overnight. They come in the morning and that person's passed away, had a medical incident overnight, missed calls. That happened right in Connecticut up to like 2 years ago. That wasn't that long ago. So the idea of having 2 people there, if someone has a medical emergency, there's someone to check there. Station 2 has an ambulance crew from the East Lyme Ambulance Fund, 24/7 down at Station 2 Rocky Neck. There's an ambulance up at Flanders, 16 hours a day. At night, that station has only 2 firefighters at it. The idea would be if there's 5 on a shift, we can't really speak to the operations side, that's Bill Bundy's, the chiefs, but I think the idea is 2 firefighters, station headquarters here in Niantic downtown, 2 in Flanders. The 5th firefighter is the captain position that they have, like the supervisor of the shift. Would probably, be at Rocky Neck Station 2, and then could take the truck and bounce around and check on the other stations. I think until January 27, when there's a full company of 6 on a shift, I think that 5th person would float between the 3 firehouses.
So reading between the lines, your answer, basically, if we hire 3 firefighters and we budget to allow the hiring as of July 21st, they wouldn't be fully on board until January 1st.
That's right.
Got it.
But, having the 1 extra firefighter per shift would give us some advantage. If only 1 person books out, then you still have 1 person to cover that shift without overtime. And the other thing, it's a nuance here a little bit, but, the concern is you don't want a lone person in a firehouse, and, they have a heart attack, something happens, and no one knows about it, and you don't have another person there. In our situation, at that fire station number 2, that houses the ambulance service. So presumably there will be 2 EMTs in that building 24 hours a day. So if we did have a firefighter that was kind of a floater, a single firefighter at that building, the concern isn't quite as concerning, no good choice of words, but anyhow, because there are other people there to monitor if something would happen to that person. So I think we could, muddle through until we had the full complement in January.
firefighters there, there's more people.
More people. There are EMTs there, and if something happened to the firefighter that was there, then they would know, and who better than to have an EMT sitting next to you.
Any other
Yeah,
questions? Yeah, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned the NAFP regulations or recommendations.
Yes.
Could you explain if there are regulations or recommendations that call for us to have 3 stations? Is it based on square miles of the town? Is it based on the population? Is it based on the number of dwellings in our town? I'm calling that question because I don't have an issue with having more firefighters, but if the issue is we have to have 2 at every building, should we be asking ourselves, do we need 3 buildings? Could we have 2 buildings that had 3 or 4 firefighters? Because obviously we're maintaining that building. Maybe it's used for EMT purposes, but I think these are the types of questions from a finance standpoint we should be asking, like, why do we have 3? And is it required, or is it that we just have always done it this way?
So let me try to answer that. As the fire service developed, it started off just in Niantic, the Niantic station. And then as the town grew and there were more people living north of where the highway is now, it was seen as a need to have a fire station on the northern side of town. At some point, the opportunity presented itself to have the Station 2, the one near Peretz Park. And so that station was built. That is actually on land owned by the state of Connecticut, but they had an agreement with the town of East Lyme, and the building is ours, but the land is theirs. So it was seen as an advantage to have another fire station closer to the beach areas, closer to Rocky Neck, further to the west side of town. So that's the way it developed over time and over the years. When we started changing the organization of the fire service, we had to maintain. We couldn't have all the firefighters that we would have liked to have had. So there had to be compromises. And so one was to fully staff the Flanders and the Niantic Firehouse, and we couldn't always have firefighters at that station. Ideally, given if you again look at the map and look at the geography, certainly the most important is to have a northern and a southern fire service. But in the western side of the town, you have a lot of a lot of situations where we might need fire and ambulance service. We have the York Correctional Facility, which is right there. We have 55 plus communities. We have two housing areas, the one on North Brybrook Road, and then the housing down near the police station. More and more, that end of town has the more potential for the need for both fire and ambulance service. Plus, we have the Rocky Neck State Park. So as the town has grown and our needs have changed, it really more and more seems important to have full staffing at all 3 stations. It reduces the response time, and that's always the key issue with fire service, is how quickly they can get to where they need to be. The other thing is, and it was pointed out last night, we had a fire situation at the police station. Certainly much better to have a fully staffed fire department, fire station close by to the police station, because that is a key piece of our infrastructure that we cannot risk. So there are a lot of reasons for it. And I hope that explains your
And Dan,
concern.
I don't want you to have to feel like you have to defend, like, that question. I feel like we're going to have to make some very tough decisions to
Right.
balance our budget. I think it's this board's job
Sure.
to challenge why we're spending what we're spending. And it would be helpful to know, like, how many fires do we have? Where, like, there's an absence of kind of operational metrics, and I appreciate the history. I don't expect you to have all of this knowledge, but I'm certainly hoping that our fire chief is looking at this and we're using like benchmarks in comparison to other towns to figure out if we even have our fire stations in the right place, right? Like, these are the questions we should be asking as good stewards for the future to balance the budget in the present.
I think we'll have an
That's-
opportunity to ask the fire chief questions
Yeah,
like that
okay,
when
that's fine.
he appears before us to present his budget. But really good points.
So Ken, to your point, those are all very valid. So one guiding document, you could say, that we've been using kind of for the fire service, sorry, Google Cloud, is the fire study that the town paid for back in, I think, 2017, I believe it is. So at the very end, and it's on the town website, if you type in East Lyme Fire Study, for anyone listening at home, it pulls right up on Google, and if anyone emails me, I can send it to you as well. I can send it to the whole board here. But at the very end of this, it is 272 pages, but there are about 25 recommendations at the very back of this. And these are what we're trying to use to guide our decision-making going forward. This has been kind of sitting on a shelf for the last decade, and we kind of pulled it out, dusted it off, and said, okay, what were the recommendations from the experts 10 years ago? You'd be surprised, they're all still outstanding. So as part of this, a new command structure, establish the East Lyme Fire Service. Down here, I think these are some pertinent topics. A committee should be created to address the various needs within the stations. A focused public safety facility management capital plan needs to be developed. I think that's part of looking and saying, okay, are the firehouses in the right spot now? That the town's been built over the last 250 years. Are they in the right spot? Do you need two in Niantic and you get one in Flanders, and then the entire north end of town, everyone's responding from Flanders? Is that appropriate? It's called a fire response analysis study, I believe it is. We did incorporate that into our 10-year plan to the best of my knowledge. So we are working on that for those exact questions. Chief Bundy and I go back and forth on this all the time because I say it takes 4 minutes to get from station headquarters to Niantic HQ in my SUV. But if I got lights and sirens, I could do that probably even quicker. But he responds, it's not going from one fire station to the other. It's the firemen going from Niantic headquarters or Flanders down to the tip of Old Black Point or Giant's Neck and things like that. Takes more minutes than 4 to get down there. And so that was his big push for the 3 staffed fire stations. So I will email that to everyone here, and just so everyone knows, that is on our radar. Down here we have this.
It's good to know we're working off of a report generated specific to our town. I think we're going to want to ask the chief some specific questions about the choices that have been made in response to this report. I kind of want to move us along.
Okay. Yep. So Kim, we right there next year in the budget, $50,000 to location study analysis. So that is something we are.
Dan, page 4.
Yep. Oh, sorry, Dan. I got. Okay, so budget initiatives. Oh, that was yours, Dan. Okay, so getting into the operation piece of this, townside budget is coming in at about 14%. That is being largely driven by the general government section of this budget. You see 2.5 million roughly increase. Of that 2.5 million, $1 million attributable to health insurance increase between the additional 6 firefighters and the 2 police officers, on top of a 15% increase in our state partnership program for health insurance this year. I thought that was pretty high until I called over to the town of Ledyard. They're facing a 22% health insurance increase, and they have an HSA. So just so everyone knows, our
That
union,
15% might get backed
It
off
might get
a
backed
little
off.
bit, depending. We get the final number in a few months.
correct. Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
So we'll keep our eyes on that. Board of Ed up $4.3 million, debt service up right around $500,000, cash capital. My initial request for cash capital this year was $1.5 million. As Dan mentioned, the goal, the town's goal for cash capital should be well north of $2 million, probably closer to $4 million. Why should we increase cash capital? Our debt service payments. If you look right there, it's about $7.6 million for debt service. That is the debt principal and interest payments. If you take the principal piece out, the principal is about $4.9 million. We're bonding $6 million this year. We are in a debt spiral. We are adding $6 million of debt. We're paying off $4.9 million, adding $1.1 million to our debt load. Every year we are doing this. Okay, this year it's good. It's only $1.1 million. The last couple years it's been a lot worse than that. So we are really trying to get away from bonding for everything and move us along to paying with cash. Why is this such an issue? The town has $82.5 million of bonds outstanding and $30 million of bond anticipation notes. That's the credit card. We don't pay. We're paying interest only on that $30 million, not a dime of principal. That has to get financed. And my finance director report in a few minutes here. I have a worksheet we can go over the debt and my projection for it and kind of show the debt bump we're going to be facing in a few years here and why we really need to increase that cash capital line to reduce our reliance on debt. Revenues. So as mentioned, the budget is up about 8.75%, 8.73. Most of the revenue items did not correspondingly increase by that amount. So you can see some of them are relatively flat, some are even down year over year. What that does is that causes the tax collections to disproportionately absorb the increase, right? So when you're looking at an $8.4 million increase year over year, 8.3 of that is hitting the taxpayer, right? Now, next slide. Some of the revenue highlights, tuition revenue, Salem, they're sending less students to us, $200,000 net decrease in revenue. Youth service grants were moved out of the operating into the grant fund, reduced other financing sources, which are operating transfers in from other funds we have in town. There's no more of that. Bond premiums, we haven't bonded. We didn't bond last year. We did bond anticipation notes, so there's none of that. One thing we're silver lining. Last week, the Federal Reserve held the Fed funds rate. They did not drop that. As such, I think we can increase our investment earnings. We'll talk about. It looks like this year we're already $1 million, so we're in good shape in our investment earnings. So I think we can bump that up. But that's something we need to watch in the next few months. Okay. Expenditures, same thing, up $8.4 million, right, because we balance our budget every year. General government. So this breaks out differently than the previous slide. This breaks out every function of the town government, right? Public safety, public works, health and human services, culture and rec, education, debt service, cash capital. And so you see the allocations there. The majority of it is sitting in that general government line. Of that $12 million line for general government, which is, the finance office, taxes, town clerk, tax assessor, things like that, the offices on this top floor, $6 million of that is employee benefits. Of that $2.6 million, the employee benefits is over $1.6 million of that. So every other department was less than $1 million increase, and that's inclusive of the IT budget, which is up $200,000. So really, we can get into a worksheet later. A lot of the departments are very flat. Most departments are under 5%, with the exception of a handful. So there's just a few departments that are really driving this budget. Breaking down operationally how it breaks down. Town side budget, this is with the education piece removed because it just throws it all off. About a third general government, fifth public safety, 16% public works, debt service is about 20%, and then culture, rec, and health and human services are just little fractions. Same with cash capital. What's driving the town operations budget? As mentioned, increased IT services. As everyone knows, computer prices are skyrocketing because these data centers are being built and they're taking all the hardware. So a computer that cost $700 last year, we're getting quotes for $1,800 for the same laptop. So that's been a stressor. The 6 more firefighters, that comes at a cost. The 2 police officers comes at a cost. The pension contribution is going up. Our pension is very well funded. We are at 92% funded. The state of Connecticut would be drooling if they had a 92% funding rate. Increased health insurance, as mentioned, and then just, the caveat, inflationary pressures throughout the budget.
Kevin?
Yep.
In terms of the IT expenses, and you mentioned the exponential increase in what computers are costing
Mhm.
because of data centers, is it possible to just, instead of supplying everybody with computers, maybe just workbooks that then feed into a cloud system that has the software and storage?
Great question for the IT director, Rich. That's what the Board of Ed does. Board of Ed, most of the kids, I think, 9th grade and under have Chromebooks, which I think are just nothing more than like tablets that hook up to the internet. I don't have one. I don't really
Yeah.
know. But they don't have much RAM. They don't have much. High school. You have an actual laptop though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think under high school has those Chromebooks. That could be something we look at. But yeah, when the IT director comes, that's a great question. I'll try to talk to him tomorrow.
I asked last time about this. Also, I think about buying refurbished equipment.
Yep.
I mean, seems to me a cheaper way to upgrade hardware without having the high expense. So, is that an option that could be built into the IT requests?
Those sound great. Great options. I don't really know all too familiar. I think at this point it's all hands on deck because it's hard to get computers at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're currently getting refurbs. But that's definitely a good question for the IT director.
I'm sorry,
okay.
I would like to ask a question on
Yep.
the pension.
Yep.
You said we're funded at 92%.
Mhm.
Does the town of East Lyme have any specific funding requirement that we have to meet, like 80%? I mean, 92%, based on my experience, is very high.
Mhm.
So do we have any minimum floor that we have to fund our pension in East Lyme?
Yes. So, well, legally, I don't know. The auditors do check to make sure we fund the actuarially determined contribution that the town has to make. So our actuary every year, we give them a census of all the employee salaries that are eligible for a pension, and they say, okay, the number is, like this current year, the number was $1,085,000. I have never seen anyone fund it under that amount. I have seen people fund over that amount. That's a great question. I don't exactly know what happens if we don't fund it fully.
Well, I don't know that any organization funds their pension at 100%, right? You remarked that 92 is high.
Mm-hmm.
I've been part of organizations that have funded at far less.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so this is based on actuarial calculations. The town of East Lyme is contributing 92% of that actuarial calculation, correct?
We contribute 100%. So,
But you're funded at 92%, you said.
correct, yeah, because it fluctuates based on market values and everything like that.
Right, but I guess I'm curious, how low can we go? Again, I'm looking for areas.
Yep.
None of these things are comfortable, but this could be another opportunity where we may not have to continue to fund at the rate that we're funding in order to provide cash to the town.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
All right. I will ask and we'll get an answer.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. I'll just touch upon this because I see our assessor standing behind me, but grand list did grow by 1.3%.
You're not
So
gonna steal my thunder,
I took your
are
thunder.
you?
You weren't there last night, so so this is very good news. She's got more to share on that. But the reason we bring that up, as previously mentioned on the prior screen, when you look at that revenues line, the tax collections was up 10.7%, but yet the mill rate's only up 9.5%. The difference between those two is correlated to the growth in the grand list. So last year the grand list was, I don't have it here, 2.85 billion?
Yes.
And so it did grow over $32 million. That 1% did help offset the tax increase. And Diane will talk more about that later. The impact on mom and dad taxpayer If you have a $500,000 house, it is assessed at $350,000. You currently pay $9,800 in taxes. Next year, with this proposed budget as is, without any cuts, without the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance looking at it, just want that caveat out there. Still has a ways to go through the budget process. You're looking at a $10,700 tax bill, about $900 year over year, about $78 a month. Capital projects, turning to the capital side of things, I did print out, just so everyone is aware, this giant worksheet here, so you can see what the initial projects were, and then you can see the CIP committee cuts. That's that first gray column there in the middle of the page. That was their cuts, and the proposed bar, the proposed budget. This one right here is the actual. That's what was approved or recommended by the CIP committee. And then this section right here, just so everyone knows, this is how we fund it. If you go to the very back page, you can see the breakdown between the 2010 5-year bond and then cash capital, right? So that's how that relates. This cash capital number relates to the budget. That's the number in the operating budget. And you're like, oh, Kevin, it's not 761,000. It's 1,055,000. That's because at the very bottom, if you look at my screen here, there's a part paid with LoCIP funds, which is a grant. Town operating about $250,000. There you get your $761,000 that reconciles to this work paper, and then we have to add the lease payments that we have to make. We currently do not have any. We're not adding leases. We have leases that are expiring. We're getting away from them and moving on to the cash capital. So we're not paying this interest on vehicles that we get rid of once we're done paying on them. So. With that, that is all we had for our presentation. Just so everyone knows at home, this presentation and all the documents are on our town website. If you go to the finance page or the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance page, all of them have a budget tab. Budget tab, go to budget year 26-27. Every department's there. It's all listed. Capital's there. So if anyone has any questions, my email's on the website as well. I'll be happy to answer any emails anyone has. And questions for the board.
Thank you. So, I mean, I think before we go on, I'm definitely struck by the magnitude of the increase. Right now, this translates to, I think it's a 9.5% increase in our mill rate. And, you know, some of the larger items here are total town operations percent change from 26 is $3.6 million up. Board of Ed operations change from fiscal year 26 is $4.3 million up. If we ask, you know, the people who manage our town operations budget to take a look at this and see if they can bring it down significantly to maybe the value of 1 mil, which is 2.866 million. That would be about a, you know, between a $700,000 and $800,000 reduction in total town operations. And if we ask the Board of Ed operations group to reduce also to the value of 1 mil, which is that 2.866 million, that would be about a 1.5 reduction in the percent change from 26. And if we did all that, that reduces our mill increase from 9.5% to 6.75%. Our mill rate goes from 30.67 down to 29.9, which is a far more reasonable set of metrics for our local taxpayers. So I'm going to ask the Board of Ed and also Dan and the Selectmen to take a look at that, whether those changes can be made, please. All right. Is there any other comments on the rest of the presentation from Dan and Kevin on our budget? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion that we accelerate the presentation from our town assessor, Diane, if she can just so she doesn't have to wait to go through everything in order to make her presentation. She's right now deep low on our agenda. So anybody move to allow the grand list update to go next, please?
So moved.
Second.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. You're up. Diane, please.
Good evening, Diane Vitagliano, assessor. Thanks for having me here this evening. I wanted to come and present my package to you in person. We spend an awful lot of time and a lot of hard work with my dedicated staff trying to wrap up the grand list every year, and it always kind of strikes me as being anticlimactic. You know, it goes sign the grand list, and it's like, so this makes it feel a little bit less anticlimactic. The good news is it was positive. That was really wonderful after the changes that the state legislator has kind of passed on to us. We had a 1.13% growth across all three major components of the grand list. The real estate grand list was up 0.75%. Not a lot, but it's positive. So yeah, that's really a good thing. And that was despite a $9 million reduction resulting from that newly enacted veterans exemption. That was a significant impact. It's nearly double what it was last year. These impacts were offset by a bunch of new construction. We had new construction over at the Edgewater on North Bridebrook. They had several new buildings come on. We also had new construction throughout town. And we also had the new subdivision on Twin Valley Road. So all of those things really significantly helped offset that $9 million additional veterans exemption on top of our already existing veterans exemptions. For personal property went up 2.2%. Again, we were hit by a $1.9 million loss as a result of our solar fields. So the state of Connecticut has changed the way they are looking at solar. And what they're doing is they're changing it to be a solar capacity tax. But when they wrote the new legislation, they had it be for new systems going forward, and they left out the existing systems. I am hoping that the legislature will correct that, but you know, right now it was a big hit. Maybe, you know, I don't know if they will. That was a big hit. In spite of that, on the positive side, we have all that construction equipment at I-95, so when you're getting aggravated because you're waiting in traffic, smile when you look at all those cranes and all that construction equipment, because it's all taxable. In addition to that, we had Best Western Hotel online, and their personal property increased significantly. And we also had all of the equipment at Twin Valley Road subdivision, that new subdivision. So those were the positive things that helped the personal property increase in spite of that big hit we took. And the last segment of the grand list is the motor vehicle list, which saw the largest increase, which was 5.5%. However, it only makes up 7.3% of the grand list. And it's after we had those major changes in legislation last year, where they really reduced the number of taxable vehicles for us because all personal use trailers became exempt. And, you know, so we had a lot of ups and downs that we dealt with. And, you know, it was very nice to see that it was, in fact, positive by 1.13%. Are there any questions?
Oh, very good news. Thank you for accelerating your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, back on track with our agenda. Kevin, you get to talk again, the finance director's report.
I kissed the Blarney Stone about 10 years ago and haven't stopped talking. So it is, that's fine. I'm good at that. So, okay, going through the presentation. Stop sharing my screen for a second. You can leave it there for now, Jamie. Okay, number one, budget versus actual reports. I sent those out last night. I did color code a few accounts on the revenue side. We are looking pretty good on the revenue side of things. Tax collections is, I do have a report from the tax collector. We are at 90. It's, I think, 97.1. Let me just pull it up real quick. So as of this time right now, we're about 92% collected. This was as of January 29th. And then year over year, if we look back 1 year, how did we collect the same time last year? We are down slightly in our collections. We were at 91.69 the same time last year. And 2 years ago, I only got 2 years here. So we are down slightly on collections year over year, but we're talking 7 basis points, which is minuscule at most. So we will see how we do at the end of February, and then after that we start tracking every month. So while the current tax collections kind of slows down now because everyone, all the good citizens have paid their taxes in January and July, so most people are paid. Now we're chasing down the delinquents. People who haven't paid are going to get notices in the mail, and then if you don't respond to our notice in the mail, we send you out to collections. And so we're good about getting our money, and then 18 months later, if you do not pay your taxes, we're going to tax sale. So, we got to keep the lights on here. So, shout out to the tax collector's office. Chris Dixon, our tax collector, does a very well job over there. Just give her a shout out. On the expenditure side of things, as mentioned, we are not in the greatest shape. That magical S word with the white stuff outside, we budgeted for like 1.5 snowstorms because that's what we've been getting the last decade. And then this year we got walloped every other day, it seems like, with snow. There's a major salt crisis. You probably saw our highway superintendent on the news. So that's really been crippling us a little bit. The firefighter overtime line, as mentioned, that is going to be close to $500,000 over. More than $250,000 we have sitting in a nest egg known as the part-time firefighters. Can't hire anybody, we can't find them, so that'll offset that. Those 2 individuals that are out on military leave, we don't pay them to be out on military leave. They're getting paid by Uncle Sam. That is savings. So we will transfer whatever savings we have in the regular firefighter wages plus the part-time wages to help cover that overage. So I assume between those 2 buckets of money that's not being spent right now, we may be in the $100,000 range. When you talk about contingency early on, we only have $200,000 in contingency. Last summer, we had a boat wash up on shore that was $30,000. Year before that, we had a dock roll down one of these rivers, and that was another $18,000. So these just crazy things come out of nowhere. As Dan mentioned earlier in his presentation, our police station caught on fire in a room with $1 million of equipment in it. It's got battery backups. The data center, the servers that we actually budgeted to replace at $366,000 are sitting in that room. So there's a lot of infrastructure that we have to cover with a $200,000 contingency item. So GFOA best practice is at least 1%, upwards of 5%. 5% in a $100 million budget is $5 million. That's crazy. But right now I tried budgeting for 0.5% of the general fund budget. That's where you see that $375,000 number. So I got to start somewhere. We got to start becoming a little more resilient on some of these areas, but we can talk about that. 2024 financial statement audit. I have a call tomorrow with our auditors. We have a call next Wednesday with MFAC, Municipal Finance Advisory Council, to update them on our audit. We are anticipating a late March or sometime in April audit filing for that. Tax collector, we already mentioned. Fund balance projection, I did pass that out. It is the same as the previous month. Not much to report on that. Debt service projection. All right, this is where I don't want to scare anybody, but I think this needs to be known. Let me go.
Kevin,
Yep,
can I back you up to the fund balance projection?
absolutely, Rich.
The $1 million that we had budgeted to put into the fund balance, have we utilized that yet?
We won't know until everything shakes out at year end. But right now, we are, if we just want to touch on that for a second, go back to 2011, if we go to the revenue side of things, some of these accounts are in great shape, depending on how much we can leverage. The one account I really monitor, because it's my baby, is the interest earnings we get. So we budgeted $1.2 million. We're already at $1 million. And that was, I can't remember, I think that's with the January, the January interest in there. So that's 7 months, $1 million. Is that $150,000 a year, a month? But if you think about it, we just got influx with cash in January. So January and February, July and August are kind of our highest months for interest because we're sitting on all the cash and we spend it down every week. So 1.2, we're going to blow past that. $1.5 million if the Fed funds rate can hold. Right now, at Chelsea Groton, where some of our money is held, and at the state of Connecticut, Chelsea was giving us 3.75%. The state of Connecticut was giving us 3.74%. So we're still up there, and you're talking, $40 million invested. So that number should definitely help out things. That number will surpass, so whatever's collected overage on that line will offset use of fund balance.
Okay.
Right.
But in your opinion, bottom line, we should probably be able to maintain some of that not being spent?
I think
Probably
a
a good
couple
health
100,000 at least, so maybe 750, something like that we can anticipate to use. Once, every month this will get better. Some of these accounts in yellow you see here, these two accounts, these are the interest and fees. These, you see this is less than half, this one's at 86%. We really need this number to rise, right? 50% on the interest and fees, but it's only halfway through the year, interest just got assessed, right? So now that everyone's gonna get the delinquent notices, oh my God, I forgot to pay, and hopefully that account catches up there. So that's why they're in yellow. These orange accounts, this account looks great, right? It's at 97% funded. However, the motor vehicle supplemental was erroneously posted to that account. That's why this looks blank, right? So this is taking into account the motor vehicle supplemental. So it's still very high funded. I mean, we're at the tax collector right here, you look at the total department, 96% funded. That's great right now. So we're in great shape with that. I think there's a few more accounts. Conveyance tax, every property that sells in town, the town clerk gets a chunk of it, right? The state of Connecticut gets a bigger piece because they do so much. And the other one I was kind of worried about, we did have turnover in our building official, right? The building officials. We have a new building official, but that line is really trending well and it's holding, right? If you remember, that line increased 700, or it was 750 last year. We increased it to 900 this year. There was hopes of getting that to $1 million this year. I think we can hold off on the $1 million for now. Let's keep it at 900, make sure we can get there this year and see where we are the rest of the year. So on the revenue side of things, Rich, I think things are looking pretty decent. Landfill deposits are up, so nothing alarming on the revenue side of things. So with that, let me just dive into the...
Can I ask you a question about the audit? So you said the 24 audit, you'll learn more tomorrow, but they're on track for a finalization what month?
I would say April. I would shoot for April. It's not that I'm waiting on them. I'm meeting with them, and we go over our open items.
Mm-hmm.
So tomorrow's discussion will largely be the sewer assessment, sewer and water accounts, and just trying to reconcile those.
So that's April, and then do you have a guesstimate yet about 25?
So if we could get 25 out, I'm going to be really ambitious here. I did do a report for MFAC where I'm hopeful that, there's a few different factors. So right now I am down a payroll clerk. So my deputy finance director is doing the payroll. So just as there's a spending and hiring freeze, the finance office isn't, I hold myself to the same standards as the rest of the town, so we are holding off on hiring this person. So my deputy, who is now doing the payroll function for 3 days of the week, so that's kind of hampering, year-end close, but I gotta reconcile the numbers somehow, so, we're kind of reconciling through that. So, let me just pull this.
Just ballpark.
6 months. So if
Okay.
we get it done in April, October, the problem is our busy season doesn't align with the auditor's busy season. Auditors, 6/30 is the year end. So once you start hitting September, right around Labor Day, they're hitting their busy season. Anyone that's delinquent gets pushed to the back of the line, and they start working on their current year clients. So if we don't get it out in that September, October timeframe, they're not going to touch it until January. Right? So it's really pertinent. Oh, this summer we get out that 25 budget or audit.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So, all right, and then debt service projection. I just want to. This is very important. This is what's impacting the budget. So, and this is kind of I'm the canary in the coal mine, right? So, when we look at the debt service here, so let me just show debt service by fiscal year. So I went in, so just so everyone knows, these aren't really, there's a few assumptions I did make. What I did, I went into our portal, US Bank, where our bonds are held, grabbed every amortization schedule, put it all together, and then said, okay, what do we currently have for bond anticipation notes outstanding in the world? $29,722,000 is what we have. I rounded it to 30 million. But what we have to do is we have to eventually bond that money, right? That money has to go from being bond anticipation note, which is just a short-term borrowing, you pay principal only, to bonding it over 5, 10, 20, 30 years. That's we have to absorb that principal piece, right? Because right now we're just paying for the interest. So what does that do for debt service? So over here, real quick, just a quick little proposal, there's nothing in writing, but if we bonded this August for $15 million, we would have bond anticipation notes outstanding of $14.7 million, right? This current year, when you look at this, I projected $7 million of bonded projects. The number is actually $6,238,000. So we can shave off $750,000. I can make this $6,238,000, and then watch what this will do up here. It slightly changes the graph. It's a working model, right? But now what that does, it shrinks this. So next year we have to bond another $15 million. Our bond anticipation will go down to 5.9. If we did it one more, it'll be negative because we've done such a good job. So here I'll say we're going to do $10 million of bonding. That's $1 million. And all of a sudden, in 3 years' time, we eliminated our credit card. If you think about it like that, right? Took out the mortgage, got rid of the credit cards. And the idea would be, if you notice, the initial projection was 7 million, 6 million, 5 million. We need a plan to reduce the debt. We've got to get out of the debt spiral. We got, at least at some point, very shortly in the next year or two, we got to stop taking on more debt than we're paying, right? Because we're still adding to this debt cycle. So I just want to get that across. I can send this to all you guys so you can look at it and review it, and make your own calculations here. But this is kind of
Is this something that will go to the Board of Selectmen for their vote?
As far as
How we handle the debt service?
So the debt service, the treasurer and the first selectman decide kind of the bonding. The boards decide the budget amount, but how it is bonded and that falls on the first selectman and the treasurer. But this is I consider this kind of part of the budget process.
So we'll take the lead on the decision making on this then.
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
I think this needs to be a front and center. Because there's the operating piece, but I've been here 3.5 years now. Capital's been kind of okay. The meeting's at 6:45. We're trying to get out by 7. Let's talk about capital real quick. Capital needs to be a bigger part of the conversation. It needs its own meeting, right? And Dan's agreed. So that's why we founded 2 years ago the CIP committee. 2 members of this board, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, 2 members of the Board of Ed. That meeting, we've met, I don't know, almost over half a dozen times over the last month. I think, like Roseanne said, 14 hours the committee met over the last month to hammer this out with department heads and deliberations. So that was worthwhile, but there's still a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do, but we're starting down the road, down the path to fiscal responsibility long-term. And we're done kicking the can down the road. We're making the tough decisions, and it's going to be painful. But if we do it, and we do it now, and we really are diligent and stick with it, 10 years from now, people that live here that are paying taxes will appreciate what we've done in the present.
And just the one last piece for the CIP committee, I just want to mention, this is the current year the current year capital projects request. There's a 5 and 10-year worksheet that the CIP committee hasn't looked at yet, but that is our next assignment. And when you look at 27 bonding, 28 bonding, we're looking 5 years out. We're talking there's requests for 2 new fire stations, major renovations at the high school, possibly a community center. It's over $100 million of requests. That has to be factored by the committee. How do we afford it? Right? It's nice to say we need $100 million in the next 5 years. That's $20 million a year. We're trying to reduce our bonding. So those are the tough conversations the town has to have in the next few years here. Preferably in the next couple months, but continue it for the next period of time.
But again, it comes down to our mantra, needs versus wants. And we simply can't afford these big projects if we're going to control our debt, spending, and bonding. People will have to accept that we have to live with what we have and try to appreciate what we have and take care of it, just like you do in your own home, most people.
So last piece of this, I just want to mention, the reason I bring this up, as you notice, we have that $30 million we have to bond for. That is creating a spike in our debt service. So by 2031, you're looking at nearly $10 million. Right now we have $7 million in debt service. You're talking a $33 million increase. That's $1 million of itself, right? So that's really where this has to come down and more level flat. In Brookfield, the old finance director, my old boss, what she would do is say, okay, when's that bond rolling off? That's when we can accept another bond, and that's how they did it. So that's kind of why I wanted to build this, to say, okay, when are the bonds falling off? When can the town afford to accept a larger bond, right? We shouldn't be overlapping and creating this debt load like this. It should be a little flatter,
That's right.
right? So that's what we need to, that's the next step. It should be very flat. And the board, I know, Rich, you've heard me say this for 3 years now, and I haven't brought it up yet for this current board, but I have a municipal comparison worksheet I do, where I take the towns around us, the towns in our DIRG, which is District Reference Group, which are kind of like the towns that are right around our same size, they have about the same demographics. What does their budget look like, right? And the model town I like is Madison. They're a higher DIRG, they're a DIRG B, we're a DIRG D, right? So they're a little more affluent town. But they have minimal debt service, less than $2 million annual debt service. Their cash capital is over $5 million a year, right? So that's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see the flip. I'd love to see us raise cash capital and start reducing that debt load. But until then, there's going to be pain when you kind of have to raise the cash capital while still paying down this debt load over 10, 20 years. Right, so that's the tough part.
May I comment? So the thing I would like to bring up, and I know you're very good at forecasting and models. What I worry about when I look at this slide, and then I think of the somewhat uncomfortable conversation we had with Board of Ed representative last time, is all of the contracts, all of our union contracts that have built-in wage increases, right? So this is just $3 million in debts, in debt service. And if you take that $3 million and you layer on all of the salary adjustments that we've already, the town of East Lyme has already committed to, right? We're obligated to. And then you add in just factors for health insurance, which I don't see that trend reversing, right? At least for the foreseeable future. We're stacking millions on top of millions, and I do not believe we have enough real estate to develop to offset that, which is why I think it is so critical per the chairman's remarks, that we do a very good job in fiscal '27 to significantly reduce our expense base. And I think the requests that our chairman made were very reasonable to get people working on their cuts, because next year is going to be our fiscal '27 will be our last year that we are going to have it easy. Like this will be an easier budget year. Those next 3 to 4, well, at least the next 3, 28, 29, or 30.
Right, shoveling out of it.
I mean, I would love to see the union wage increases layered in and health insurance premiums layered in. Like, if you have a working model of that, I think that would really set the tone for the work that needs to happen in the '27 budget.
Absolutely. So we've been working on the budget, but prior meetings, I did bring up that 5-year projection I was working on, and I would love, the Board of Finance is getting the budget from the Board of Selectmen next month. So your next meeting, I think it's either the 11th or 12th. 11th of March. You're going to get the Board of Selectmen's budget, and that's going to be the Board of Finance's job to start working on that. I would love if I could have some, help. Like, so I've done a lot of the, work already. I've got a lot of assumptions baked in that include union contracts. But I would love to take another stab at this, in the next week or two, send it on to the board, and then maybe meet, with a couple of you guys and hash out anything you see that's either you want changed or you want to see different assumptions. But I would love to be able to have this ready to go for the Board of Finance when they get the budget, so you can say, okay, here's our model for 2027. This is what we have to live within, right? And then for the next 5 years, model it out for 5 years,
Yes,
right?
agreed.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful, and that gives us benchmarks. We're comparing ourselves to what we've budgeted essentially, right? That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Did you want to mention the spending hiring freeze?
Yep, so as previously mentioned, the town is under a hiring and spending freeze, so we are not firing anybody. Then I got to pay unemployment, because we pay 1-to-1 unemployment. There's no unemployment insurance in government, so when someone gets let go, it's dollar for dollar. Every penny they get from unemployment, we have to pay. So we have about 7 positions that are open right now throughout town hall, throughout town, not just town hall. We are not filling those. We are waiting until the last possible moment. So we're trying to save as much as we can. We've instituted a discretionary spending freeze, so if you don't need something right now, you're not getting it. So we're really buckling down and not making many friends. But
Of those 7 positions, Kevin, are any critical jobs that are needed for town services?
I got one big one, the payroll one, but I have a bias because it's in my office. But
So no police officers, no dispatch, nothing like that?
there's one police officer that's kind of on medical leave. I don't really want to get into the specifics for that individual, but there's one position that's open in the police department. We have 2 in the grounds crew for Park and Rec. There's someone in my office. We had an individual in the tax collector office just quit. Just trying to think who else. We have a town engineer position that's open downstairs.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few positions in town. We're withholding from hiring. We had interviews going next week that we've delayed 2
Right.
months, 3 months. So we're pushing back as much as we can. For instance, like Park and Rec, they have a grounds crew right now approved for 5 as of January 1st, right? So in the budget last year, Jerry Locken, our town's Park and Rec director, asked for an additional staff. That was cut back to a half-year position. So that position was supposed to start January 1st, 2026. There was an unfortunate passing in the grounds crew. The supervisor passed away, and so they weren't able to kind of fill that position. So they were down to 3 in that department. So right now they have 3 in a staffed department of 5. We're not allowing them to currently fill those 2 positions.
Right. So I'm assuming this decision about spending and hiring freeze was filtered through Dan and the selectmen, right?
Yeah.
So what's your thought about the police officer? Would you consider a carve-out for that role?
So I think we can delay it. a little bit to see if, we don't want to lose a good candidate, but there is timing involved in doing the interviews and, ultimately making the offer. So we may be able to dovetail that with our needs to suspend, budget spending for the next few months. So I think we can still accommodate the needs of the police and take some of the pressure off of the current budget, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from board members? Great. Thank you, Kevin. On to new business. Discussion of the bond authorization of $6 million for the Colony Road Bridge.
Sure, I'll take this one, Dan. You're good with that? Yeah, okay. All right, so the federal and state government are so gracious enough to pay for the bridge, which is about $6 million, but the only caveat to that is the town has to administer the project. So the town's engineer / deputy public works director, Alex Close, our public works director, Joe Bergaw, will be overseeing that project. So we need to have the project approved and authorized for the full amount. We are not going to take a dollar out, right? But just what you kind of have to do, you have to take a resolution out, get authorization. It's kind of like when you build a new school. You can pay $100 million to build a school. The state will reimburse you 40% of it, but you still have to get authorization for the entirety, right? So that's kind of what we're doing here for this project. There will be a second one of these coming down the pike. It's not Plants Dam. What's the other bridge there? Fairhaven Road Bridge. That's the other bridge project. I think we actually already approved that one, didn't we? Did that come before you guys? Okay, anyway, if we haven't already, Fairhaven Road will be coming down the pike as well. This is a great program. These are bridges that, the town's responsible for, but the state's saying, hey, look, we'll give you the money for it to do it. That way they know it's safe, it's more resilient. So this is a very worthwhile endeavor.
So do we need to make a motion to authorize the bond sale even though there's no actual expense to us?
Correct. I need someone. There is a paper in front of you that has a paragraph. If someone would be so kind to read that paragraph. Barry, you've seen this a few times, and you'll see this again in July when we go through our other $6 million bonding project. But
Rich,
oh, Rich, sorry, Rich. You know that. No,
I
it's
have
yep. You got
you
it.
want to make the motion?
Yeah, I can do it. I'd like to make a motion that the resolution entitled Resolution Appropriating $6 million for the Planning, Design, Acquisition, Construction, and Replacement of the Colony Road Bridge over Latimer Brook Bridge, number 05623, a federal local bridge program project, and related infrastructure, and authorizing the issuance of $6 million in bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose, a copy of which is attached hereto, is hereby adopted and recommended for approval by the legal voters of the town at a special town meeting.
Perfect.
Is there a second for this motion?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded, and forgive me if I don't repeat the entire motion, that we authorize the $6 million so that the state funding can be actually achieved. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of this extremely well phrased motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. The discussion and possible action on the use of the NIP funds, $12,267 whole dollars.
All right. So this is something we've been using the money for the last year. Last year we spent about $38,000 doing the exact same project. So the state of Connecticut, within the last, I would say, 2 years, I think it is, instituted a fee on nips, those little alcohol bottles. People tend to just swig it and throw it out the window when they're driving. So they're all over the place. So one of the greatest uses for the town of this money is to go around cleaning the catch basins. there's a company that works with the capital region of governments, CROG I think it is, that gets a great rate. It's $25 per, what are the things on the side of the road called? Catch basin. So they come with a giant vac truck, you know, those things with a giant hose in the front. They clean the whole catch basin out, and it prevents all of those nip bottles from washing into Long Island Sound, washing up on the beaches. So just to give everyone an idea, $12,276. We get that every 6 months roughly. It's 5 cents a nip.
Gives you some idea how many nip bottles are being tossed out.
Yeah, so it's, what is that? Oh, I don't even know. Like, what's 20 times 12,000? That's what it is. Yeah, it's hundreds of thousands of nips in every town. That's just in East Lyme. That's just in East Lyme. And it's crazy. Like some of these shoreline communities, or you know, the towns around like Candlewood Lake, right? The people are boating out there. They're buying a whole sleeve of nips. It's just crazy. You know, $12,000 worth of nip deposits. So our proposal is to use that this springtime to clean the catch basins. The goal is to clean half the catch basins a year in town. And so 50% this year, 50% next year. Every 2 years, 100% of our catch basins are cleaned. That's the goal here. So this is the initial approval. I imagine about April, May, we'll have the second tranche of money. We'll be doing the exact same thing.
So we need to authorize the use of the $12,000 for this evacuation effort?
Not evacuation. I would just call it, you know, cleaning. What's the phrase he uses?
Sucking the
catch
nips out of the
basins.
drains.
Yep.
Clean town catch basins.
Does anybody want to make a motion better and phrase it better than I did?
It's there's a worksheet. Yeah. Yep.
We have another.
Yep.
Rich, you want to take a turn?
Sure. I move to approve a special appropriation for the Public Works Department of $12,267 from the NIP funds for cleaning town catch basins. Note, this motion will require town meeting approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of authorizing the $12,267 for use of this cleanup effort, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
I think I need a Jägermeister. Sorry.
I'm glad it was you that said that and not the high school student.
Unbelievable.
Next up is old business, the 5-year budget outlook projection. Just sort of an update to what you have put together for us last month, if you have an update.
So I don't have an update. It was this that Excel file I currently shared during my presentation. So
Okay.
my plan would be in the next week and a half or so to send that out to the board, a more refined version, and then maybe get on a conference call or maybe a Zoom meeting with a couple board members that are interested in looking at that and kind of hash it out and get it more refined for our March regular meeting.
Indeed. Okay, good. Our next item up is public discussion, but even I can tell there's nobody in the room except for us. So I'm going to just say that there's probably going to be no public discussion. Are there board comments? Go ahead, Rich.
Yes, thank you, Scott. I greatly appreciate your concern about the proposed budget that we received this evening and your suggestion to limit both the town budget and the Board of Ed budget to at most a mill increase with the amount accordingly as to what the mill is equal to. I would like to strive to go below that. I would like to see us have our mill rate not increase more than 1 mill, and possibly even less. I know that it's an incredibly difficult measure, especially in an incredibly difficult time of rising costs and wages. Something that I had proposed last year that I would like to propose again this year, and I would like to have some consideration of by the parties involved, is that the administration of the schools and the department heads and first selectmen perhaps forego increases in salaries this year, is kind of showing that they're team players. And in a team effort, perhaps the schools unions and also our town unions might be willing to reduce the amount of increase that they get in salary this year. I know it's a big ask. I'm not expecting to hear anything in the near future, maybe some rumblings. But I just would like to raise the flag. It's a red flag as to where we are fiscally, and I think we need to have some weather warnings, hurricane warnings. One thing that I've kind of tried to do over the last few years is to make greater use of our fund balance to help with the budget. I know it's not fiscally a proper thing to do, but as we move to trying to get more towards cash capital from being on our quote credit card, I think it might help us get there. And we have many citizens in this town that literally cannot afford an increase in their taxes. And I know of citizens that are helping other citizens just with the maintenance of their houses because they don't have the money to do that. I think we need to be sensitive to our citizens and try to look for ways that are sort of out of the box to try to address these very complicated issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Anything else? Great. So our next meeting of the Board of Finance is a regular meeting on Wednesday, March 11th. And then we'll get into budget season with our first special follow-up meeting on March 16th. Did you want to?
Just touch upon the proposed dates
You
and make
wanna-
sure they work with everybody.
We already did in the email that we sent out to everybody, and nobody gave feedback that there was significant deal breaker dates. So yeah, March 11th for our next regular board meeting, March 16th for our first special budget meeting, and will we be posting these on the town website?
Correct.
So people who are fans of Board of Finance discussions on the budget can tune in. Multiple times in March you'll get to be a fan. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor of adjourning our meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, we're adjourned.